Interesting. If we look at from the point of view of diplomatic answer to all this rough words toward European countries that you mentioned right now about let's bomb France, let's bomb whatever country. So we see mostly they're smiling and not answering towards the propagandists' words because it's mostly for the entire audience. But still, how should it be in an adequate world where there's 1.5 year war inside of the European continent?
You know, there are like dreams and there are reality. When we are talking about dreams, I am as Ukrainian and many of my friends, many Ukrainians, they are dreaming about the time when we will see next to us on the battlefields soldiers from Poland, from United States, from Germany, from Great Britain. This is dream. But the reality is that nobody is able and willing to send their soldiers unless there are casualties on their territories, what I have mentioned. If Russians will organize brutal provocation which will cause death of civilians, then even Germans will act. They have proved that they can change their policy. During 16 months, their policy changed dramatically. The same with people from Great Britain and decision makers from Great Britain, with our Polish friends, the Slovenians and so on. I mentioned just today, it seems to me, or yesterday, President of Czech Republic provided permission to 14 Czech citizens to join Ukrainian armed forces. Can you imagine? President of NATO member state. The same can happen with other countries. But Russians, we must admit it, they are very careful. They are loudly threatened, but they do not do anything in order to act. They are trying to be very careful not to actually organize casus belli for Poland, for Lithuania, for Germany, and for United States. If you will take this example with 3 vessels which passed through so-called sea blockade, from Israel, from Turkey, and from Greece. 3 sea vessels arrived to River Port. And the Russians didn't make a decision to hit them because they don't want to, to harm the relationship with Greece, which normally before the war was one of the most sympathetic countries towards Russia, with Turkey. And with Israel, where Russians have very various, let's say, interests. So the situation is now very, I would say, sensitive. Every day, any day, every day and any day, the casus belli can appear. And then the war will become much more brutal and with many more countries involved. We will see what will happen during next months, but now I think for Russians it is becoming more and more difficult to take everything under control as they think.
When we see the accuracy of some politicians in the European Union, we might understand them as humans, but still when I read the answers from the GPT chat, that is accurate too as well. It's very interesting from your point of view. I will add some information and answer of GPT chat according to the arguments against increasing defense spending. Resource allocation. Critics argue that increased defense spending diverts resources away from social welfare programs, education, healthcare, and other vital public services. They believe that funding should be allocated based on the most pressing domestic needs. And in this situation, I understand that the arguments are not always effective among the politicians, but these are real arguments. The threats is here. The threats is near your borders. So even if GPT chat is arguing, so what can we answer to the politicians that are still doubtful in some questions in Europe?
In my opinion, there is just logical process, and we cannot change their minds immediately. We have to work on this gradually, step by step. If you will see how the policy of the majority of European countries changed during 16 months, that is unbelievable. Back to, for instance, January 2022, we could not even imagine that we will get really heavy weapons from Spain, from Portugal, from Greece, but it's happening. So we have to continue this very sensitive and very professional diplomatic efforts in order not to spoil, but at the same time in order to keep ongoing this trends, this dynamic. And I think that in several months we will get everything what we still are not able to get, despite the fact that we are asking, we are trying to provide arguments and so on. I mean, military aircrafts, I mean, missiles, I mean, tanks, war tanks, and so on. Everything what we need, we will get. The only problem is time. For us, time means people's lives.
Yes.
Of course, our soldiers' lives and our civilian lives. When I'm now in Borispol, for instance, and I'm more or less safe, but I understand that my child is not safe. Every night, Russian drone or missile can hit the house where my family lives. And the same situation for every Ukrainian on the Ukrainian territory. It doesn't matter in Zakarpattia, in my native Kharkov, in Kyiv or somewhere. And this is the most difficult task for us to explain European politicians to American politicians, Canadian politicians, and politicians from other free world states that we cannot wait anymore. The Russian Federation should be destroyed like Carthage in ancient time. Everything what we need to destroy Russian Federation.